Good morning. Morning.
Good morning.
Okay. It's not more than that. Good morning. So today we're going to start Unvav Amad Beis. Bechor v'Maiser v'Pesach. It's the Mishnah. The Mishnah towards the bottom of the page. Thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. It's supposed about learning we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. You agree?
I'm sorry?
You agree?
I didn't hear.
You should have the Beis Hamikdash.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And also
It goes without saying.
Okay.
You don't even have to say it in the morning because it goes without saying. It's also for Shleima for my father and Naftali ben Menachem and whoever else. Okay. The Mishnah starts off like this. Bechor, but dealing with the firstborn animal. When the pasuk talks about a bechor, it says bechor shor, bechor kesev, bechor reiz. Gives me the firstborn ox, the firstborn lamb, the firstborn goat. It has to be brought as a sacrifice. Firstborn animal, if it does not have a mum, if it's in good condition. Otherwise, it's just a gift to the Kohen. But Meiser is when you tithe the animals. You know, remember they walk through a fence and you tap them. They 1, 2, 3. We get to 10. That's the Meiser. That's also a sacrifice. But Pesach, everyone knows what the Pesach is. It's brought on Erev Pesach. So Kachim Kalam. All of these sacrifices are Kachim Kalam. They're of lesser holiness, which means that there's no Me'ilah if someone makes personal use of the animal. And they all have a similarity. They can be slaughtered anywhere in the courtyard. That means it does not need to be on the north, like we said, by the other sacrifices. And v'damantan matana achas. This is a unique one. Most of the sacrifices we said were shtei matana shein arba, those catty corner, put it on the 2 corners. And then we had the chatas, which was an application on all the 4 corners. Then we had those unique karbanos where it actually went inside the sanctuary. But here it says just one matana, one application. That matana needs to be on the part of the mizbeach that has a yisoid underneath it, which would be excluding the southeast corner, the southeast corner. Okay. Shina bachilasan. Shina bachilasan means that although we just had a list, we have a list of sacrifices here, Bechor, Mais, and Pesach. And we said that they're all similar regarding 2 things, regarding where they're sacrificed and the application of blood. However, they're all different when it comes to the eating of it. So Shina bachilasan means that there's a difference, there's a difference in the way these 3 sacrifices are eaten. Now we go through what the difference is. It says HaBechor, for example, the Bechor, the firstborn animal, that's a sacrifice that's Nechal l'Kayanim. That's eaten by the Kayanim, not by the owners. But Meiser, the Meiser animal is L'Chol Adam. That's eaten by anyone. Means even the owners, even non-Kayanim. Nechalim B'chol Eir. Both of these sacrifices, the Bechor, which is only for Kayanim, and the Meiser, which is for everyone, you have the entire city of Yerushalayim to eat it. B'chol Meichel. What's wrong? Nothing. I just missed. I missed it.
You missed a translation?
What? I missed the notes. But, okay.
What's
the Misa was.
Meiser is the tithe.
Was eaten.
It's eaten, but it's eaten by anyone. And the Bechor is eaten only by the Kayanim. And now we're saying that both of those together, the common part about how they're eaten is they could be eaten
anywhere in Yerushalayim. You have the whole city of Yerushalayim. And it could be eaten in any form. It doesn't have to be roasted, as we're about to see. The Korban Pesach is roasted. So, and also they're eaten l'shnei yom v'layla echad. You have 2 nights and 1 day to eat both of these sacrifices, which we said was similar to the Korban Shlamim or the other Kodshi Kalim sacrifices. Pesach, now we're going to see some differences. The Pesach, Eina nechal ala balayla. You only have the night to eat the Korban Pesach. Ve'eina nechal ela ad chatzos. And even that night, you only have until midnight. And we're going to see in the Gemara if that's because you really only have till midnight, or if that is just to distance you from going over the time. That would be the difference between, for us, first night of Pesach and the second night of Pesach. Now, not to confuse you, but in the Chabad community, the first night of Pesach, you end the Seder at Chatzos. You have to finish the meal at Chatzos. The second Seder, you can go further. And the explanation for that is there is actually machlekes in the Mishnah. When the Korban Pesach, how long you have to eat the Korban Pesach? There's an opinion that says you only have until Chatzos. And so that we follow that for the first night of Pesach. Other opinion says, no, you have until the morning. We follow that for the second night. So when it says over here at Chatzos, which at Chatzos is it referring to? Is it referring to that you really only have until Chatzos? Or is it referring to all the sacrifices we tell you until Chatzos because we don't want you to go over the time? Okay, ve'eina nechal ela lemenuyav, and it's only eaten to those that have signed up originally when it came to purchasing the carbon. To those that were counted into the sacrifice, and it's only eaten when it's only eaten roasted. You can't cook the Korban Pesach, and also can't be raw. Yeah. Okay, the Gemara asks right away, Mantana. The Gemara has an assumption over here that because we're comparing the Bechor, the Meiser, and the Pesach, so we're going to be left with by the Bechor it says, "Es damam tizreik ala mizbeach." It says you have to sprinkle the blood on the altar. By the Meiser and the Pesach, it says that you pour it. So Mantana, who's the opinion that holds that because we're now joining them all together, that all of them are going to need to have zrika as opposed to shvicha? Rashi here that said something interesting.
Could you say that again?
Yeah.
All of them will have to have Zrika switching instead of what?
Shvicha. Shvicha means to pour it. You see, it says by the by some of the sacrifices, it says dam zevachecha yishafich, that you pour it. By the Korban Pesach, it says dam zevachecha yishafich, you pour the blood. It doesn't say tizreik. By the Bechor, it says tizreik. Now in our Mishnah, we put Bechor, Meiser, Pesach, and all together, and we clumped them together, and we said v'dam tam matanachas, it needs one application. So this is an assumption over here that the application is the same for all of them. Now Rabbi Shmuel in another Gemara says that we don't say that. He holds that no, the Korban Pesach is different. But over here, it's interesting because the Mishnayos and Yisrael Mekayman don't list any machlekes in. They don't say the other opinions that you have to find from other sources. All the Mishnayos and Yisrael Mekayman are without machlekes. Just tells you this one, the unanimous, the anonymous opinion, not unanimous, but the anonymous opinion doesn't tell us any names or anyone else that disagrees. So here we're saying Mantana, who's the one that holds that it actually has to be sprinkled, all of the blood. Rav Chizda, Rabbi Yossi Aglili here. Rabbi Chizda says it's Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Yossi Aglili is a friend and student. It's called the Talmud Chaver, a friend student of Rabbi Akiva. All right. So he's not actually the student of Rabbi Akiva, but he's Maybe he learned by Rabbi Akiva, but he was also considered a friend of Rabbi Akiva.
Yeah.
Beisel is earlier, like 6 generations earlier. So 4 generations. It may be considered Beisel because it's the house of Hillel. Not a you see, Rabbi Akiva learned by Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus and Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania. They learned by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Zakkai learned by Hillel and Shammai. So when you talk about Rabbi Yossi Glili, you're going back to Rabbi Akiva, to Rabbi Eliezer, back to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, back to Hillel. So
he's Yossi ben Kalafta.
No. Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta is actually a real Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. He is that's Stam Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah. When you see Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah, it's Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. Rabbi Yossi Glili was not one of the 5, but he's associated with Rabbi Akiva, but he's more of a Talmud cover. Okay, now we'll see. That's going to be relevant actually.
I see.
So Rabbi Yossi Glili says, the Tanya was taught in the Brisa. Rabbi Yossi Glili Aimer. Rabbi Yossi Glili says, regarding the firstborn animal, we have a pasuk. It says, Ach b'char shor, b'char kesev, b'char reiz. It says, it's damam tizrek al mizbech v'eschelbam yatakter. Its blood. Actually, it says damam, their blood. Tizrek should be sprinkled. And chelbam, their fat, you should smoke. You should burn on the altar. Now, there's an ending. Is that a possessive ending? Yeah. Damam, their blood, and chalbam, their fat. So there's different ways of understanding this. One way of understanding is when it says damam, their blood. Why is it its blood? We're talking about the firstborn animal. Well, at the beginning, you did itemize the firstborn of a sheep, the firstborn of a goat, the firstborn of what was the other one? Chashar, first one of an ox. So you did itemize it. So damam would mean their blood of all of those bechars, all of those different types. But Rabbi Yossi Glili doesn't say that. Rabbi Yossi Glili says, chalbay leinemar. It doesn't say his fat. Ela chalbam, it says their fat. Damay leinemar, it doesn't say his blood. Ela damam, it says their blood. Limeid, it's coming to teach us. Al bechar u'maiser pesach shetin matan dam ve'imun gam mizbeach. It's coming to tell us that there are other sacrifices that are included in this. We didn't mention them, but it's coming to say that not only the Bechar, but also the Meiser and the Pesach are going to have also the blood sprinkled on the altar as opposed to the blood being poured on the altar. Because it says, Damam Tizraik, their blood you sprinkle. And it didn't have to say Damam, it could have said Damai. It's coming to include in that other sacrifices that also needs to be sprinkled. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Glili.
And burned.
And then it's going to be burnt, yeah. And then the fat is burnt. Okay. Another thing that we learned was that it's Keneged HaYesod. It was it was sprinkled on the altar at a location of the altar that had a foundation underneath it, which is excluding one corner which didn't have the foundation. 2 sides. It's 2 sides in a corner that didn't have a foundation, which was the southwest corner. Southeast corner did not have.
On purpose?
I'm sorry? Yeah, they made it on purpose. Yeah, it wasn't a mistake. We learned before it had to do with the 2 tribes of Yehuda and Binyamin that passed through, and we wanted it only to be in Binyamin's portion. We left out a piece of the altar. So southeast corner.
It's a physical thing.
Yeah. Everything is physical also. It's also some spiritual. But okay, Keneged HaYesod, it says that it has to be opposite this foundation. Minolan, where do we know that it needs to be opposite the foundation? I'm Rabbi Eliezer. Do you have Rabbi Eliezer? I think it's supposed to be Rabbi Eliezer usually. Usually it's Rabbi Eliezer here. Let me just see. Gimel. Rabbi Eliezer, it says. It corrects it. Rabbi Eliezer is the Amayra, Rabbi Eliezer ben Pedas, that answers a lot of questions in the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer would have been Tana Rabbanan, or it would have Rabbi Eliezer would have been in a Mishnah type of quote. The Amar Rabbi Lazar is typical for the Gemara to say. Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas, the friend of Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Rabbi Lazar answers the question, how do we know that it needs to be on the part of the altar that has a foundation? It says, Asya, Zrika Me'oila. We learn it from a verbal analogy called the Gzeira Shava. We learn it from the Oila. Just like the Oila, the blood has to be applied at an area that's above the foundation. So too, by the sacrifice needs to be on the area on the altar that's above the foundation. And by each of them, it says the word Tizrek. So the verbal analogy is Zrika. We learn from an Oila. It says Vayla Gufei Minalan. And where do we know that the Oila needs to be opposite the foundation? It says, well, the Ksiv regarding when a king does an avera, it says in his sacrifice that he brings, it says it says he pours it on the foundation of the mizbeach of the oila, and that teaches me that the oila limed al oila it's coming to tell me on the foundation of the oila of the mizbeach oila, it's coming to tell me that the oila needs a foundation. So we learn that the oila needs a foundation, and then we learn that the Bechor Ma'aser Pesach need a foundation based on what we learned from oila.
Well, in general, needs a foundation.
Yeah. So the Gemara says, "Imala halon shtei matanos shein arba, afkan shtei matanos shein arba." If you're going to learn like this, you're going to end up with the full story, the full package. The oila, it's 2 applications, which are 4. And we're not saying that. We're saying that by us, we only need 1 application. If you're learning from the oila, so then maybe you're going to end up with the full package, more than what you asked for. Amar Abaya says, Lama li lemichtav saviv ba'oila saviv b'chatas. The word saviv means all around. Now we understood that saviv by the oila meant that you do 2 applications of blood catty corner, 2 which is 4. And then by the chatas, when it says saviv, we learned that it means an application on each corner. But it says saviv all around by each of them. Why does it have to say it by both? So because each of them say saviv, and you're trying to get from the oila over to the Bechor Ma'aser and Pesach to those other sacrifices that they should also have the same saviv. Saviv means all around. So, but because it says it twice, that teaches me that those cannot be a precedent, because when you have a precedent, it only says it once. If you're saying it twice, that means that you can't learn from the precedent, and that's why you have to say it a second time. So that tells me Shnei Ksuvim, 2 verses that are teaching the same thing, Ein Malamdim, you can't learn that to somewhere else, because that's obviously not a precedent, or else you could have just said one of them. The fact that it has to say it again means that each one was not sufficient to be able to teach. That's why I had to say it twice. Gemara says, well, Hani Chalaman Damar, where we're holding right now, as we're trying to figure out how we know only half of the story of the oila over to the Bechor and Ma'aser Pesach, only the application that needs to be over the foundation, and not that it needs to be 2 applications, which are 4. Now, how do we drop half the story? We're explaining because that other part of the story, the saviv, is Shnei Ksuvim Abam Kechad. You can't learn from that because it says it somewhere else, and if it says it somewhere else, then it can't be applied. Now, Rashi mentioned something interesting. Rashi says, in the Rashi Ein Malamdim, he says, I would have thought that Shnei Ksuvim Abam Kechad Ein Malamdim was only when it's a hekesh, only when it's a comparison. But here it's a Gzeira Shava. Rashi says, Ashmina Abaya comes to teach us, the Shnei Ksuvim Abam Kechad Ein Malamdim, afilu b'Gzeira Shava. Even if it's a Gzeira Shava, you still, if you have 2 verses, I won't even take it with a Gzeira Shava over to the next one. Yeah, that's a chiddush. But I mean, that's the Gemara is clearly saying that, but Rashi spells it out. So Hani Chalaman Damar Ein Malamdim That works out well according to the opinion that says that you two sources you can't learn from. Elamanda Amar Malamda, but according to this opinion that says that you have two sources, you still can learn from it. Ma'yek Lamemer, what are you going to say? Why don't you have two applications that are for by the Bechor and Meiser and Pesach? If we're learning from Ayla, we should end up with the whole Ayla package. So the Gemara answers, Asham Shleisha Ushleisha Vaday Ein Malamdim. The Asham would be a third one, and everyone agrees that when you have three psukim, that you don't learn from the you can't learn from that. You can't take that as a precedent. Okay. Rashi spells out that when you have Shnei Ksuvim, you have two verses, you don't learn from that. We thought that was when I only have a precedent, like a Hekesh, or a Binyanav, let's say. Binyanav would be a precedent. It says it, and then it says it somewhere else. So why do you have to say it somewhere else if the precedent was enough? So we would say that, the fact that you said it somewhere else means that you can't learn from that. So, but over here, it's not a Binyanav. Over here, it's a Gzeir Shavah. Yeah. So what we're saying now is that in the Gzeir, I'm learning through a Gzeir Shavah. Learning through a Gzeir Shavah. The Gzeir Shavah is the means of passing it over. But the halacha that I'm learning from it, the background to that Gzeir Shavah, has two sources. And so the Gzeir Shavah won't pass over what originally had two sources. So in other words, it leaves out the two sources. Restrict the Gzeir Shavah to only things that had only one source.
One of the sources, Olala?
One of the sources is Ayla, the other source was the Chatas. And why do you need two sources? Okay. The next Gemara, Bechor Nechel HaKayanim. We said that the Bechor is eaten by the Kayanim, and the Bechor happens to have 2 days and 1 night to eat it. The Gemara is going to bring some sources for this. Son Rabbana was taught in the Brayse, how do you know that the Bechor could be eaten for 2 days, and a night? It says in the Pasuk regarding the Bechor, it says, their flesh will be for you. It will be like the chest of waving, and like the thigh, and like the right thigh. What is the chazei atnufa and the sheikha yamin? That is the part of the animal that's given to the kayan by a korban shlamim. So when you talk about the chest and the thigh, and the right thigh, you're doing a comparison from the bechar to the shlamim. So it says like this: Ikishu akasov. There's a comparison going on here. L'chazov v'sheik shel shlamim. Ma shlamim necholim l'shneiim v'layla echad. Af bechar nechol l'shneiim v'layla echad. So what happened is, what the pasuk is saying is that the kohen eats the bechar animal, eats the firstborn animal. It's his. Give it to the kohen, it's his. It's one of those 24 gifts. Kohen gets the firstborn animal. But in describing that it belongs to the kohen, it says it belongs to the kohen just like the part of the shlamim that belongs to the kohen. Only part of the shlamim belongs to it. Which part? The chest and the thigh belong to it. So that was in the association of how it belonged to the kohen was chazei atnufa sheikha yamin. So why do you have to have that association? It belongs to the kohen. No, it's coming to tell me that just like the chazei atnufa and the sheikha yamin, you have 2 days and 1 night to eat it. So to the bechar, you have 2 days and 1 night to eat it. It's coming to set that restriction on how long you have to eat the bechar. V'zu hashayla nishla fnei chachamim b'keren b'yavner. I'm not telling you, you're going to like this. It says this question was asked by the sages in Keren B'Yavna. Keren B'Yavna is a name for the yeshiva. It's called Keren B'Yavna. There's actually a yeshiva today called Keren B'Yavna. A very appropriate name. But why was it called? Keren means a vineyard, and Yavna was the city. And it was called a Keren B'Yavna because the way the yeshiva was set up was in rows, like the vineyard is in rows. So it was set up like the vineyard in Yavna. So that's how
you mean the chairs for the Bakram to sit in?
That's what it seems like. Yeah.
Well, Wasn't this, was this before they were allowed to sit?
Oh, they were sitting. I mean, we have benches already by Rabbi Eliezer. We have Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, remember, and Rabbi Gamliel. That actually
Yeah.
probably was in Yavne. That was in Yavne, I think. Okay. I know there were times when they weren't allowed to sit when they were learning. Well, the teacher would sit, right? No, actually, there were times when the teacher would sit on a chair and the students would sit on the floor. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
I thought it was
So,
because of the success of the Bachrim, how much they were learning. I thought it was always related to, you plant a seed and the fruit comes, you know what I mean?
oh,
I
interesting.
didn't know it was because of the rose. That's
Yeah, that's
amazing.
what Rashi says. Rashi says it's because of the rose. When you see a vineyard, and then you see a base medrash, you can, if it's organized, you can see the comparison. Okay. So this question was brought to the Chachamim and Kerem Biyavna, and it says like this: Bechor l'kamanechal. How many days do you have to eat the firstborn animal? And then Reb Tarfon v'amar Reb Tarfon. Reb Tarfon was an older sage. The Gemara actually tells us that he was tall. He lived long. Reb Tarfon says, "The shnei yom v'layla echad. You have 2 days and 1 night." There was a student that showed up for his first time that day in Kerem B'Yavne. This is for day 1, and already he's asking questions. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Shemai, his name is Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Amalai. So Rabbi Shachat in Los Angeles told me he was the youngest student in Lakewood by Reb Aaron, and he said no one asked questions in the shir, but he got accepted into the yeshiva. They were told that he's a genius, so he was younger than everyone else, and they brought him in, and Reb Aaron liked him. And anyway, in the first shir or something, he asked a question. Everyone was stunned. It was like a little, he's outspoken. He could be outspoken. So he asked, everyone's quiet, and Reb Aaron took him serious, and he answered. He says from then on he got like this name in the yeshiva that he's a genius. And anyway, okay, Rabbi Yossi Aglili speaks up. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Amalai, basically says to Reb Tarfon, Rebbe, minayin lacha. Where do you know this from? That a bechar has 2 days and 1 night to eat. Amalai, so Reb Tarfon responded, Bini, my son. I guess that's how you speak to the first student, the first day. Shlamim kachim kalim. Shlamim is a kachim kalim, a bechar kachim kalim. And the Bechar is Kachim Kalim. Kachim Kalim is of lesser holiness. Just put it into the right category and you'll see the answer. What type of sacrifice is it? Kachim Kalim. Okay. So Kachim Kalim means 2 days and 1 night. So Amar Lai, so Rabbi Yossi Aglili says to Reb Tarfon, Rebbe, Bechar matanu l'kayin. Chatas v'asham matanu l'kayin. Who eats the Bechar? Only the Kayin. So let's put it into another category. Let's put it into the category of, which folder does this go into? It goes into the Chatas and Asham folder. That's a gift to the Kayin. So, Ma Chatas Asham Liyam V'Layla, just like the Chatas and Asham, which is eaten by the Kayin, you only have 1 day and 1 night. Af Bechar, which is also given to the Kayin, Liyam V'Layla, it should only be 1 day and 1 night, not 2 days and 1 night. Amar Lai, Reb Tarfon responds, Nadan davar midavar, mitaych davar, benilma davar midavar. We have to look at what's it more similar to. Let's look at the better comparison here, and then we'll get to halacha. Ma shlamim ein ba'an al chet. The shlamim doesn't come because of a sin. Af bechar ein ba'al al chet. The firstborn animal is not a sin either. There's no sin. The animal was born. It's born first. There's no sin there. So it's more similar to a shlamim, which is just a gift. So, however, chatas and an ashram that you're trying to compare it to, those come because of sins. So, ma'ashlam nechalim shnei v'layla achad. B'char nechal shnei v'layla achad. Reb Tarfon maintains his position that you have to compare it to the shlamim. That's 2 days and 1 night. Amalai, Rabbi Yossi Aglili responds. He doesn't give up. He says, Rebbe, nadan davar midavar, v'yom medavar midavar. 1 second. Let's look at what it's comparable. Let's do other comparisons. Chatas v'asham matanu l'kayin and b'char matanu l'kayin. Chatas and Asham goes to the Kayan, and the firstborn goes to the Kayan. Ma Chatas Asham ein Bain Beneder Nedava. Just like the Chatas and Asham are not donations. The sin offering and the guilt offering. It's not a donation. He had an obligation to bring it. So, Af Bechar, Einai Beneder Benedava. Also, the firstborn animal, it's not a donation. It was born and he has to bring it. It's an obligation, not a donation. The Shlamim was a donation. So, he says you can't compare it to the Shlamim because this is an obligation and the Chatas Nashim is an obligation. It's more comparable to the Chatas Nashim. Ma Chatas Nashim Nechalim L'Yoyim Echad. Bechar Nechal L'Yoyim Echad. The Bechar you should only have one day to eat, more similar to the Chatas Nashim, which are not donations. Kafetz Rabbi Akiva v'Nistalik Reb Tarfon. This is like a play. The next scene. Rabbi Akiva jumps in and Reb Tarfon leaves. So, scene 2, right? Amar Lai, Rabbi Akiva says to Rabbi Yossi, says like this. Harei Oimer, it says in the pasuk, Besarim Yelach, the flesh should be for you. This is talking to the Kayanim, and it's talking about the Bechar. The flesh of the Bechar will be for you, and we remember the end of the pasuk, will be for you like the Chazei Atnufa Ksheika Yamin. Will be to you like the chest and the thigh, and the right thigh, which is a description of the part of the Karban Shlamim which went to the Kayan. So the pasuk itself does a comparison between the Bechar and the Shlamim sacrifice. There's a comparison going on here in the pasuk. It compares it to the chest and the thigh of the Shlamim. So it's with that he rests his case, right? And he says, I threw the pasuk in, so there's nothing to say after that. However, so Amar Lai, Rabbi Yossi says back to Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, he says, you did a comparison to the Chazan Shaykh of the Shlamim. However, if you look into this, it's not perfect because together with the Chazan, the Shaykh of the Shlamim, there's also the Chazan, the Shaykh of the Taida. The Taida is a type of Shlamim, which also has the Chazan Shaykh. However, there's a time restriction on the Taida, which is not on the Shlamim. The Taida is only 1 day and 1 night. The Shlamim is 2 days. So when you did a comparison to the Chazan Shaykh saying that that's a Shlamim, guess what? I can say that that's a Taida. That also has a Chazan Shaykh. So he says, Ani makisha l'Chazan Shaykh shel Taida. Ma Taida nechelas liyam v'layla. B'char nechel liyam v'layla. Liyam v'layla. Yeah. Also the B'char should only be 1 day and not 1 night. Amar Lai, Rabbi Akiva responds, Rei Oimer, pasuk says, B'saram yelach. Its meat will be for you. And it adds in the word yelach. It didn't have to say yelach or l'chayeh. It will be understood. B'saram kechazei atnufa. The flesh will be like the thigh, like the chest and the thigh. Why did I have to say yelach will be for you like the chest and the thigh? Why did I have to add that in? It's coming to tell us an extra existence about the Bechar, which tells me that we're going to get an extra day. I could have compared it to the Taida, but it adds an extra day, Havaya Acheres, another, not Chavaya, that means an experience, right? It's coming to add another day with the word Havaya, Haya, the to be, the verb to be. It's giving us another day. Yeah. But how does means it's going to be his a little bit more. The Kayan's a little bit more. Shenemar dvarim lifnei Rabbi Yishmael. When these words came to Rabbi Yishmael, Amar lahen, Rabbi Yishmael says to them, Tzuva Amar Rabbi Akiva, go tell Rabbi Akiva to Isa that you made a mistake. Because what happened was Rabbi Akiva agreed to Rabbi Yossi. Fine, you want to compare it to the Taida? Fine, we'll compare it to the Taida. But I still have the l'chayiyah, I still have those extra words that I add an extra day to the Taida. So Rabbi Yishmael says that's a mistake. Because Taida mehechan lameda. Where do we know the carbon Taida from? Shlamim. Well, what part of the Taida do we learn from the Shlamim? We learn that the Chaza and Shaykh have to go to the Kayan. How do we know that by a Taida the Chaza and Shaykh go to the Kayan? Because we learn it from the Shlamim. So it says, where does it say by the Shlamim? It says, Zeis Teiras Zevach HaShlamim Asher Yakriv L'Hashem Imal Taida Yakrivenu. It puts it under the category, puts the Taida under the category of the Shlamim. And I know that the Shlamim has the Chaza and the Shaykh, the chest and the thigh, which are given to the Kayan. So that I learn it over to the Taida. And now what's happening is, Rabbi Yossi Glili was suggesting to Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva agrees that now we're going to learn that that the Chazan Shaykh of the Taida is going to be comparable to the Chazan Shaykh of the Bechar, which is going to give me only 1 day and 1 night, and Rabbi Akiva has to throw in an extra. He says, 1 second, Rabbi Shmuel is talking. You learned this with a comparison. The whole Taida going to the Kayan, the Chazan Shaykh of the Taida going to the Kayan, that was only because of a Hekesh. And now you're doing that Hekesh over to the Bechar. You can't learn a Bechar to the B'lashon Achron. You can't learn a Bechar to what's learned from the Shlamim. You have to learn the Bechar from the original Shlamim, Ela B'lashon Rishon, which was the Shlamim. Yeah, we said you can't. So Rabbi Shmuel is telling Rabbi Akiva that you should not have suggested Rabbi Yossi Glili's suggestion, even though in the end you come out with the same result because you throw in Yilachayiyah, but you shouldn't have done that anyway. You should have said you can't learn a Hekesh from a Hekesh. Rabbi Yishmael, Hailachayiyah Mayavadis. What does Rabbi Yishmael do with Lachayiyah? That Rabbi Akiva said it's going to teach me an extra day. It said Limed al Bechar Balmum Shematan Lakayin. It's coming to teach me that the Kayin actually gets an extra type of Bechar, which is if it has a blemish. Usually when a sacrifice has a blemish, it becomes not a sacrifice. Right. Same thing by a Bechar, it has a blemish. However, it becomes not a sacrifice, but the Kayin keeps it. So it's given to the Kayin, but he doesn't have to bring it to the temple, he eats it at home. No. Certain chatas are left to die, but regularly a sacrifice that has a mum is sold and the money is redeemed. But here he doesn't even have to sell it; he just eats it. It's because it belongs to the kohen. Okay. Well, so what does he do with this? L'chayiyah. It says teaching me that we don't find anywhere in the Torah what to do with the bechar. That's a balmum. Now we find out l'chayiyah, the kohen keeps it. Rabbi Akiva that learns from l'chayiyah that you get an extra day for a bechar. How does he know that the bechar with a mum goes to the kohen? Yalflemi b'saram. It says their flesh. Why did I have to say their flesh? I should have said its flesh. It's coming to tell me chad tam l'chad balmum. It's coming to tell me the plural of b'saram is coming to tell me one is going to be a regular sacrifice. One is going to be, which means without a blemish, and one's going to be even with a blemish. It still goes to the kohen. Rabbi Shmuel, what does Rabbi Shmuel do with? He says l'chayiyah is teaching me that the balmum goes to the kohen. So what does he have to do with besaram? He says besaram the hanach b'cheres kamer. If you look at the pasuk of the firstborn animals, it says that the firstborn ox, the firstborn sheep, the firstborn goat. So he says the besaram is coming to tell me all of those options. That's the plural. There's different types of firstborn animals. It's not coming to tell me a balmum. It's coming to tell me the sheep, the goat, and the ox. Okay. Now, so far so good. Now it gets a little bit more complex. It says, "But my kamifgi, what is the machlekes Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva?" But what the Gemara is going to do now is it's going to tell us about something that's learned with a hekesh and something else. It says like this: Mar Savar, Rabbi Shmuel holds, this master holds, Himenu v'davar acher, something that's learned from a hekesh, Himenu from it, and something else, Havi hekesh is considered a hekesh. So what's going on over here is that the amount of time that a bechar has to eat, we're learning it from the carbon taida. see the carbon taida is eaten by one day and one night. That's clearly in the Torah. Taida says it in the Torah that it's 1 day and 1 night. However, who gets the chaza and sheikh of the taida? That's done with a hekesh. So what I'm left with is I have a hekesh that it goes to the kayin, and I have also the original halacha, which it says in the Torah. So Rabbi Shmuel says, if I have something that's a hekesh, and I have together with that something that's not a hekesh, do I consider it a hekesh or not? So Rabbi Shmuel says it's considered a hekesh. Mar Savar Rabbi Kiva holds, Leah be hekesh, it's not a hekesh. So what comes out is, Rabbi Shmuel was asking Rabbi Kiva, how could one hekesh teach me another hekesh? Rabbi Kiva says, because it's not a hekesh. Because the fact that it's in the Torah, the fact that it says that you have 1 day and 1 night is in the Torah clearly. I know I'm using a hekesh to tell me the chazar and shayt goes to the kayin, but I have another part of this which is not a hekesh. So we consider it, when you have both options, we consider it not a hekesh. So it comes out that there's machlekes Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. If you have a hekesh and a non-hekesh, is it considered a hekesh? Rabbi Shmuel says it is a hekesh, and therefore one hekesh can't teach another hekesh. Rabbi Akiva says it was never a hekesh. Okay. Bishleim Elaman Damar works out well according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva that says Layabi hekesh, it's not a hekesh, I know the ksiv. That's why it says when it comes to the sprinkling of the blood of the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur, it says that it will atone on the holies. It says V'chein yasa layel mayid, and so you should do to the tent of meeting. Our sages explain this in the Brisa that it says like this: just like the blood of these animals went inside the lefnai v'lefnim, went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. In the Kodesh HaKadoshim was sprinkled between the staffs of the Aron, right? It was sprinkled in the Kodesh HaKadoshim itself. Achas l'mayla v'sheva l'mata midam apar. You take the blood of the bull, you go inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and you sprinkle 1 time above and 7 times below. 1 time above meant underhand, and below meant overhand. He's
Nice.
throwing it downward, right? Is that correct, or is it the opposite? Chas l'mayla meant underhand, I think.
Yeah, makes sense.
I don't remember which one, but anyway, yeah, softball or baseball. Is that what you're telling me? Okay.
Off of
Yeah,
tennis.
it's this way or this way.
It's another tennis term.
What is it? How does it say in the English?
It says once upward and 7 down.
Once upward means underhand, and 7 down. Yeah. How does this go back to tennis, Daniel?
Yeah, you use that in tennis also. Underhand, overhand serve, underhand, same terms.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's a lot of tennis in the base of Mikdash, right?
yeah,
We
copper
have
net.
the net. Okay. So I
think it's to absolve us from kafakela. It's like
I had a student that everything that we learned was baseball. I don't know how everything that it's just like baseball. So okay, anyway. Yeah, right. Like that story with the chazan. There's the song. The chazan comes to town, and it's a Yiddish song, and the tailor says, "Oh, he sang like he says something in tailoring," and the other one says he did something. The cobbler says he did something. They compare it with their jobs. Okay, kach masa behechal. So just like in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that's how it was done. So too in the hechal, kshem shelafnai v'lefnim, just like in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, achas l'mayla v'sheva l'mat midam asar. There was the same thing in the Kodesh HaKadoshim from the blood of the goat. We just spoke about the blood of the bull. Kach masa behechal, the same thing as the hechal. So it's 1 below and above. Now, if you look at this carefully, this is partially a hekesh and partially not a hekesh, because by the bull it says that you sprinkle above and below, but it doesn't say how many times you sprinkle. By the sar it says that you sprinkle above. Oh, by the bull it doesn't say how many times you sprinkle above. By the goat it doesn't say how many times you sprinkle below. Nacham make a hekesh v'aseh stomach ashasal damapar, that what was said by the par, that's by the bull, that you do 1 above, will also go to the sire, And what's said by the sar, which is 7 below, is also going to go to the par, to the bull, which is 7 below. Now, according to Rabbi Akiva, each one of these has a hekesh, and it also says what it's written about it. So once I get those two sprinklings in the Kodesh HaKodashim, now I compare it back to the Heichal, to the sanctuary. So according to Rabbi Akiva, it wasn't a hekesh because it was a mixture of a hekesh and what it says clearly. So therefore, I'm able to learn it over to the Heichal, from the Kodesh HaKodashim to the Heichal. Elamanda Amar, but according to Rabbi Shmuel, that says that something that's a hekesh and something else is considered a hekesh. Ma'ikal Meimar. So how is he going to learn over to the Heichal what was already learned with the hekesh from the par to the sar? So the Gemara answers, Mekaymas with the Gamrin Ma'adadi. What we're doing is we're just taking a comparison from the Kodesh HaKodashim to the Heichal, and it's not going to be considered that the par to the sar. You see, if I have to learn what's taught by the par to the sar and what's taught by the sar to the par, then that would be considered a hekesh. But you see, I'm not doing that. I'm just looking at the Heichal as a total. I'm looking at the Kodesh HaKodashim as a unit, and then I'm taking from that unit over to the Heichal. So I'm not viewing it as a hekesh. I'm viewing it as what happened in the Kodesh HaKodashim. I'm going to reproduce that by the Heichal, not the par and the sar of it, but just the place of it, because then it includes everything. Iba Yasema, another way of doing this is that chutz mipnim b'chadzim negamer. What we're doing is we're learning from the par to the sar, from the sar to the par, in both the Kodesh HaKodashim and the Heichal in one shot. So it's not, I learned it first to the Kodesh HaKodashim, and then I learned from that to the Heichal. I learned them both together. Okay, fine. Bishlam Elamanda Amar, it works out well according to Rabbi Akiva. He says that loy habi, right? You have to add in the word loy.
Yeah.
That's a big problem, a big mistake in the text, right? Has to say loy habi. That according to Rabbi Akiva, that says that it's not a hekesh. It says about the 2 loaves of bread that were brought on Shavuos. It says that you bring these from your dwelling place. You bring the loaves of waving. It doesn't have to say that you bring it. I guess it was understood that you have to bring it. It's because it already says via kravtem. It says for earlier in the pasuk that you should bring it. You have to bring it. Say again that you should bring it. What it means to say is kol she'atamevi mimakayim l'makayim acher hareihu kazeh. Anything that you're bringing from one place, anything that you have to bring is going to be similar to this. Now, what is this? We're going to compare it to the 10 loaves of bread by the carbon taida. Mala halon, just like by the shtei alechem, with the 2 loaves of bread on Shavuos, isarin lechala. Each one of the loaves was an isarin. Isarin is 1/10 of an ephah, so a large amount of flour. I think that's 53 eggs. 53 eggs. Afkan is the gematria of challah. Afkan. So to by the carbon taida, isarin lechala. You have to have a isarin, 53 eggs for each loaf. Gemara says, "I malahalon mishnei esrainim afkan mishnei esrainim." Over there, by the 2 loaves altogether, it was 2 isarin because he had 2 loaves. Maybe over here by the taida, you're also going to have 2 isarin. How's that going to be?
That was 43.
43. I'm sorry. Thank you. 43. The lamed 30. I'm sorry.
One above 42.
Yeah. So maybe by the carbon taida, all the loaves together, or there were 10 loaves by the 10 loaves. It would have to be from 2 isarin, which means each one would be 5 isarin. 5 loaves per isarin. That would be 5 loaves per isarin. So Talmud Laimar, it says tiyena. It should be. Now it has an extra yud in the word tiyena. Lamadnu that asara lachametz, asara lamatzah. When it comes to the asara lachametz, that into all the loaves of chametz were only one isarin. No. Does it mean that all 10 were one isarin? Does it mean that each loaf of the 10 were isarin? Because by the carbon title we had 10 loaves that were chametz. An isarin of flour is used for each loaf. 1 second. No, Tiana. Tiana tells me that there must be an isarin for each of the 10 taida loaves. The verse cited states in regard to the 2 Shavuot spreads, Sheilas Tiana. The word Tiana is spelled with 2 yuds, which, though it would be read the same even if it only had 1 yud, Bryce different interprets the extra yud to allude to the number 10 and to teach that 10 such measures of flour should be used. This teaching cannot refer to the 2 Shavuot loaves themselves, since the verse states clearly that there are only 2 isarin are used for that purpose. Teaching must be understood to refer to the taida loaves that are said in the earlier, that are alluded to in the earlier verse of Taviyu, and it comes to tell me that each one of them, next year, this teaches in effect that the comparison is that it's a ratio of an isarin per loaf, not the total amount of flour. Okay, so the carbon taida is going to be an isarin per loaf.
What note was that?
I don't know, what note did I just read? You show me again. I just read note 8. There were 40 loaves. 30 of them were matzah. We're only doing the comparison to the chametz, to the 10 loaves.
So you bring an example of a hekesh that's not that's not for the main reason, but for another reason.
Aha. So lamadnu lechametz, mislamadnu asar lechametz. Now the brisa goes on. It says asar lematzah. It says the one that were matzah is going to be the same thing. That you're going to have 10 isarin for the matzah. Over here you had 30 loaves, and it's going to be made of much less flour. The 10 loaves of chametz are going to be made from 10 isarin. The 10 matzah, the 30 matzah are going to also be made from only 10 isarin. L'asara l'matzah minayin. How do you know that it's going to be the same? Talmud Laimar. The pasuk says al chalas lechem chametz. Al chalas lechem chametz. All those other loaves are brought together with the ones that were chametz. So neged chametz havi matzah. The same amount of flour that was used for the chametz, which was only 10 loaves, you'd use 30 of them for the matzah. You make 30 loaves of matzah. I guess if you imagine matzah as thin crackers, it's not a big kasha. Okay, so what we're seeing over here is that I had the measurement of the chametz I got from a hekesh. And also I got from not a hekesh. The part that's a hekesh tells me that it's an isarin. But it's not a hekesh, tells me that there were 10 loaves that I got from Trumas Meiser. I got from a different source. I got a Gzer Shava. So it's as if it says clearly in the Torah. So now what I'm doing is I have one hekesh and something else is being taught with another hekesh. Why? Because I'm learning from the chametz over to the matzah. So according to Rabbi Kiva, it fits. Elaman Damar, but according to the one that's no. So how was I able to do that? According to Mandamar, Havi Hekesh. Oh, according to Rabbi Yishmael, how are you going to be able to do this? You have to drop the word loy over here. So how are you going to be able to learn it over to the matzah? So it says Taviyu Yiseirahi. The extra word Taviyu is coming to teach me that you have to bring for the chametz and for the matzah the same amount. Okay. Let's finish the parak. Pesach in Nechal. Pesach is only eaten until Chatzos. Mantana, who holds us, Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. The Tanya was taught in the Brisa. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Aimer. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, Nemer kan b'layla hazeh. It says by the Korban Pesach. It says on this night. B'nemer la'alon, and over there it says by Makas b'chayros. V'avarti beretz Mitzrayim b'layla hazeh. Will pass through the land of Egypt on this night. Ma'ala halon, just like over there when he passed through the land of Egypt. Makas b'chayros was at Chatzos, was at until midnight. Afkan at Chatzos. Also the Korban Pesach is only until midnight. Amalei Rabbi Akiva says to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, it says you should eat it in haste, which means that you have to eat it until the time of haste, which was only in the morning. Rabbi Kiva says you have until the morning to eat the Korban Pesach. So why do you use balayla this night? I could have thought, without the balayla I could have thought that you're allowed to start eating the Korban Pesach before it gets dark. Tells me balayla that you're only allowed to start when it gets dark, but really you're allowed to go until the morning. Okay. Amalei Abaya says to Rabbi Yosef, this was taught by Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef is saying that it's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. How do you know that the Mishnah is really Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? It's a deraisa, dilma derabanan, or laharchika min avera. Maybe it says til chatzos, just to distance you from doing an avera. So Rabbi Yosef answers him, Cain, my ella ad chatzos. Why did I have to say only until? Ella ki hasam, rather it's coming to tell us that, just like over there where it says that it's only eaten at night, it's only eaten roasted, ma hasam midaraisa, just like the other halachas were deraisa, afkan, nami midaraisa, just like so too, ad chatzos, ella ad chatzos is also telling me a deraisa, that only until midnight is a deraisa, not just a rabbinic law to distance you from sin. Okay. It's quite a chapter. Okay. Have a good day.
That odd is a really important word there.
Yeah. Yeah, but the Ella is the Ella ad, only until. The Ella is telling me that it's a biblical law, that it's until Chatzos. As opposed to, I could have thought that maybe you eat it until Chatzos because we don't want you to linger, because then maybe you'll. But only until makes it stronger. Yeah.
They
You
had to finish it completely, so
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
Don't leave anything over, right?
Whose voice is that?
That's Josh. Josh Green. Okay.
Have a good day.
Yeah, have a good day. Hatzlacha.